Hey everybody, this is Fago Franklin III with New Stitch Media. I'm here with former NFL legend Tyoka Jackson. First and foremost, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. Just got to work out. Be drinking water throughout this whole thing, so bear with me. But doing pretty good, man. We're healthy and got no complaints.
Amen to that. I definitely completely understand with that. So first and foremost, how are you adjusting with the pandemic?
Well, I'm choosing to listen to the scientists and doctors. There's a lot of noise out there, and there's a lot of people who are willing to give advice. But I when I'm not an expert on something, I tend to lean on experts. And it's interesting that all of the experts are in lockstep with right now, anyway, with what to do to slow the transmission of the virus. And then also, first of all, I believe it's real. I believe the virus is real. There's a lot of people who think it's not real. It's a hoax. And so, first of all, you got to believe that. So I believe it's real. And then I listen to the scientists, and they're saying wear a mask and physically distance. I don't know where that term social distance came from, but it's really physically staying away from people. And I try to do that as much as possible. And so far, so good.
So before we go jump into your sports career, first and foremost, I know you do so many things in DC. What does it mean to you that you could be a role model for people out in the DC area?
Well, it means a lot to me. I learned early on that, for better or worse, athletes are looked upon as role models, and each athlete has to make a personal decision whether they embrace that role or not. And I decided to embrace it because I had role models growing up who were athletes. That's watched from afar, and it made a difference for me. And my number one role model was my dad. And a lot of people, fortunately, don't have their dad, or their dad is not a great role model. So for these reasons, I took the responsibility seriously and have tried to act accordingly. Obviously, I make mistakes because I'm human and not perfect, far from it. But it's something I take seriously, and it'll never change, football or not, just because I think it's, you got to make a decision. You're going to have a positive impact on your community or not. And at the end of the day, no one's going to remember really what I did in football because it wasn't that great anyway. But I hope that what I do for our community means a lot more.
So I know that there's a movement with the Black Lives Matter movement. What does it mean that there are certain changes that are happening in America right now?
Well, I think it's for me in my lifetime, it's unprecedented, the amount of participation in civil disobedience for the purpose of equal treatment and justice under the law for people of color as well as everybody else. And I have never seen this much engagement from people not of color. And that means a lot to me. And I keep saying in posts and whatnot that this one feels different because we've had movements in the past that have been very successful. We've had movements that petered out pretty quickly. This one, though, seems different. I think we're probably living in the modern day civil rights movement of the 60s, in which I wasn't born and I read about and seen a lot of movies and shows about. I think this is that time all over again. And it's unfortunate that we have to have a time like that all over again. But overall, it's a very positive thing, in my opinion, just because we're trying to make America a more perfect union and to live up to what the documents say. The documents were written not necessarily. The documents weren't written for the people of color. But now that we've evolved and know better, that the color of your skin means absolutely nothing. It's the human being behind it. We're trying to enforce what's already on the books. And you would think that would not be hard, but unfortunately, it is hard. And so I am encouraged, though, the amount of young people that are involved. Obviously, there are a lot of people who are jumping on the bandwagon to sort of look a certain way using a catchphrase. And it's important that Black Lives Matter just doesn't become a catchphrase, that it actually is something that means what it says. So I think if we keep that in mind and keep pushing forward, I think it'd be better for the entire country as a whole.
And I know this is a weird time for everybody, including sports. So what advice can you give some of these gentlemen that are, playing and looking for positions about going into next year? Because of course there's no preseason right now.
Yeah, well, it's tough because you don't really control your own destiny, and that's the thing about sports. You never do anyway. It's not an industry where you can go out and make it happen. I'm an entrepreneur, and I can go out and make it happen. I can just go and learn my trade and and work it and make it happen. Well, when it comes to sports, someone else has got to give you an opportunity. Someone else has to believe in you, and you have to have the rules that allow you to go and participate. And so, right now, I think the rules are in flux, especially for amateur athletes. And there's a lot of waiting, and it should be because I just personally don't see how a sport like football can go forward on the college and high school level with a
Mm.
pandemic in the middle of a pandemic where over 140,000 people have died, millions of people have contracted the disease, and we don't know enough about it in terms of transmission and effects on young people to risk lives. I just think that it'd be prudent to not till we know more until there's a treatment and or not a virus, but a treatment and a cure. Um, I just don't know how you can just put people on the field and have them run into each other and expect, or at least say with a straight face that you're protecting the athlete. So if you are an athlete right now, you keep working, you keep training, and the rules will dictate what kind of participation that there is. And if they open the thing up, if you got parents, y'all need to have a long conversation about the long term smart decision of participating in sports during this pandemic.
Now, with your career in the NFL, I know you were a leader on and off the field. What did it mean to you that you can inspire your teammates on and off the field with being a great leader?
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is learning what leadership is. And I believe that the first thing leadership is you got to be accountable to the people you're trying to lead. You got to be unselfish and think of others and not just yourself. And you've got to be consistent, with not just your performance in the job, but also the little things that matter. Following the rules, doing the things the right way, the way you work. That's what leadership is about. A lot of people think it has to do with who's the loudest in the room or who speaks the best, and the best command of the English language, and you know who wears the best clothing and who's liked the best, and none of that has anything to do with leadership. And so I think once you realize what leadership really is, then you got to decide, am I going to be a leader or not? Am I going to do it to the fullest or not? And so for me, it was again something that I took very seriously. I embraced being a captain. A lot of people don't want to be a captain of a football team, and I embraced it. But I didn't try to change either. I figured who I was good enough to be elected a captain. There was no need to go out and try to act any different. Just understand what leadership is all about, and make sure that leadership is an ingredient in every decision you make going forward.
And I know you played for the Bucks, the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Rams. Which of those teams that you like playing for?
The most, I mean,
Yes.
I loved them all because I like playing for all of them. My dream, beyond my dream. So, I've got nothing negative to say about any of that and any of those experiences. Um, I loved it all. To go out and play the sport that I love and get paid well for it, that's crazy, actually. So I have nothing negative to say about any of it. But playing for the Rams, the St. Louis Rams, was a little bit different than the other ones, just because of the teams that we had, the type of men in the locker room, very unselfish, high character people. We're talking some of the greatest players ever played their position. I played with 4 Hall of Famers and counting. The number is going to go higher. Right now, we've got Orlando Pace, and we've got Aeneas Williams.
Mm.
We got who else? We got wide receiver is escaping me right now. Isaac Bruce. There he is. He just got elected.
Yep.
So playing with Isaac Bruce, one of the great all-time people and hard workers that I've ever been around. And Marshall, I said Marshall Falk, I believe, right? Kurt
Yes, sir.
Warner, Kurt Warner, who's a Hall of Fame quarterback. So that's 4 there. And then I don't think it'll be long before Torrey Holt gets in there as well. So just having those type of people in the locker room who turn out to be really good people, good guys, all leaders in their way, by example, all of them, and some of them vocal leaders. That's something that just puts that experience a little bit higher.
Now, in your perspective, do you think Alex Smith should come back to the league and actually play after he came off a devastating knee injury?
Well, I think if he's healthy and he certainly wants to play, then he's got to play. If that's what he wants to do, you got to go make it happen. Over two ifs, I believe he still wants to play. I mean, he worked his rear end off. It's been real chronicled. The things he put himself through to rehab. You don't come back from an injury like that without extremely hard work and dedication. And so obviously the guy wants to play. And so once he's cleared by the doctors and he's cleared by himself mentally, he's ready to go, you go. It is what it is. It's a dangerous sport. We knew that when we signed in up for it. And we didn't know necessarily some of the brain stuff back in my day, but they know it now. But, he wants to play. He's an excellent quarterback, in my opinion, underrated. I think he'd be really a good fit for the locker room and the meeting room for the young quarterback who they drafted out of Ohio State, who has the tools to be great, and just needs a mentor. And I think Alex Smith can be that mentor for him.
So who you think is going to have the better season, Cam Newton or Tom Brady?
Well, first of all, that's a tough question because I hate the Patriots. First of all, all these years I've hated Tom Brady because he cost me a Super Bowl, and I'm a firm believer that he cheated in the Super Bowl with 5 years back. Now Tom Brady is playing for one of my former teams, and that I still love, and have a house not far from the stadium and go to games. So. I'm going to root for Tom Brady because he's suiting up with the good guys now. I'm not going to root against Cam Newton because I'm a fan of Cam Newton. But none of this is answering your question. Who's going to have a better season? I think you gotta probably lean toward Tom Brady for a couple of reasons. He's not coming off an injury. The Buccaneers are hungry and have a lot of offensive talent. And they have an offensive guru as the head coach who will put Tom Brady in position to make a lot of plays. And I think he's the greatest quarterback that's ever played the game. So you add all that up, I would, if I had to bet, I would bet on Tom Brady. But as much as I can't stand Bill Belichick, I think he's probably the greatest cheating coach of all time. And he'll put this guy in position. And I think Cam's got a lot to prove. And I think he's very hungry. So wouldn't shock me at all if both of those teams had very successful seasons. But if I had to pick one, I think Tom's probably poised to have a big year. And I think he feels like he's got to let everybody know that he's the GOAT and he wasn't just Bill Belichick.
In your perspective, with Roger Goodell implicating the Black national anthem, do you think that's just a trend that Roger Goodell and the NFL is following, or do you think this is a change that we could definitely see in the NFL?
Well, I'll never know for sure because I'm not in the heart of Roger Goodell in his mind. But it sure is a heck of a 180. And, when you are a business leader, owner, or you run a business, it's really important to sort of read the tea leaves of your market. And I think that the NFL league office in Park Avenue, a lot of people are in that office reading the tea leaves. And when you see a lot of white young folks take to the streets for days, weeks, and months on end to protest racial inequality, and those are your customers now and future customers, I think it behooves a smart business person to reevaluate their situation. So I think there was a reevaluation, there was a decision to do what's smart to protect their brand, and that also happens to be what's right. And then you can decide, hey, which one should have came first, all that stuff. But what they're doing right now is the right thing. And I think they're doing it. I think the biggest motivation for it was to do the right thing for their business.
And my last question is, what advice can you give young people got about going towards their dreams, making it happen, and taking the leap of faith?
Well, we could probably be another hour on that one, but the first thing is you gotta make the decision on whether your dream is realistic. And a
Mhm,
lot of people don't like to talk like that. All right. But if I had the dream to be the greatest jockey to ever ride a horse when I was 6'2" and 220 pounds in high school, I just think that probably would not have been a dream that was rooted in reality,
mhm,
because jockeys are 5'3" and 5'2" and weigh about 115 pounds. So it just
mhm,
wouldn't have made sense. So is your dream rooted in reality? And if it is, then you put everything you got in that dream. And that's unpopular because a lot of people say, hey, you better have this and you better have that. I'm just here to tell you, if the bigger your dream is, the more you got to put into it. And I graduated college with a degree,
mhm,
but I pursued my dream as if there was nothing else there, that I needed it like I needed air. And that's why I was
mhm,
able to make it happen. Now, I'm not stupid. I understand the numbers say that, only 1% of high school players make it to the NFL. I get that. And that's why I went through college and didn't want to be exploited and got my education. But I went after it with everything I got. And people told me no. And I was cut twice. And they didn't love me. And I loved the game. And the game didn't love me. And I'm living proof that none of that mattered because I worked all of it. But
mhm.
the question is your dream rooted in reality? If it is rooted in reality, then go for it with all you got. And when they tell you no, you keep plugging away.
Amen to that. Thank you for allowing me to interview you. It's been a pleasure. I love every moment of it, and I definitely would love for you to come back on the show one day.
Hey, my pleasure, Fago. I appreciate it. You stay healthy, man.
Yes, sir. You too.
All right. Bye bye.
All right, now. Bye bye.